In this video, we're going to make a glide ability that will allow you to still shoot and control your character in air. And yeah, it works multiplayer and it's pretty fun. So if ever you need a glide ability in your game for allowing the players to go further laterally in the sky, or you just want them to break their fall before they land abruptly, then this is the video for you. The first thing we want to do is to navigate to our shooter gym. So click on common maps and then shooter gym. Once that opens, to not get wrecked by the AI, navigate to edit, editor preferences. And then under the Lyra developer settings, let's just not allow player bots to attack while we're developing the glide ability. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and set this as a default, just in case I close my editor and it gets overwritten. I wouldn't save these settings into source revision, or else everyone will get that setting and people might want the bots to actually attack. So yeah, okay, I'll go ahead and close that. And then the first thing for the glide we'll do is set up the inputs and the ability. So for the glide, I like to look at the jump ability and sort of mimic what it has done, because the jump is also a movement ability. Same with the dash. So this is a good spot to put our input action for our glide. So I'm just gonna right click, and then under input, there's the input action. I'll call this one IA glide. Okay, and this is the input action that will be used to map our inputs to end up triggering our abilities. So for the glide will just be when the input is held down. So we're just gonna use the hold, and then we'll have it pretty instantaneous. We want the glide to activate as soon as possible. Okay, so I'm just gonna save that. And then another thing I noticed that the jump had was that they have the player mappable key settings, and that is experimental, but I figured I'd implement that too and see if it shows up in the settings menu. Okay, so I choose, I think it was this one. Okay, and then I'm just gonna call this one glide, and then glide. Okay, and let's see where that jump ability is set up or hooked to input tags. You can either right click on it and search for the reference, use the reference viewer, or you can access it through here also, through here. So reference viewer. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and open up anything that has to do with the jump input action, because we'll have to pretty much do or use the same one for the glide. So I'm just going to Control E to open every one of them. So I don't need the inventory test. I'm going to use the input data for the hero. Okay. And then, so the input mapping context, it's where it's bound to the actual input keys. So for keyboard and for gamepad. So we're going to go ahead and just add another action mapping so that our glide has a definition or a mapping of what triggers the glide. So on the keyboard, I'll select the spacebar. And then what's nice about 5.3 is that it kind of inherits from the settings of the input action. So previously, I wasn't even sure which one won, the one in the input mapping context or the one in the input action itself. So this is a bit clearer. Yeah, and then for the gamepad, I'm going to choose the left trigger. I'll get back to that, why I did that, because there was a weird behavior with setting it to the same input as the jump, where you would jump it immediately glide. So yeah, so I'm gonna save this. Okay, so now we have our input mapping context for glide. And then in the input data, we need let's search for the jump one, see what happens here. So the jump is hooked up to a input tag jump. So let's do the same thing, but for the glide. So input action, glide. And then we're going to create a new input tag. And yeah, so I will just call this one input tag, add subtag. And then I'm going to call it glide. And then it since 5.3, it asks which source you want. So just to verify what the jump input does, I can actually get this gameplay tag manager, and then you can see the source of all the tags. So this is really nice. Since some of the tags are in gameplay feature plugins, and it's a bit confusing sometimes to know where they came from. So in our case, the input tag jump comes from the default gameplay tags ini file. So I'm just gonna click down, add subtag, and then this one will be glide. And I'll add it to the default gameplay tags. I'll add a comment because it's good to know what this tag or what its intentions are. So gameplay tag that will trigger the glide ability. Gameplay input tag. It's pretty self-descriptive, but it's always good to have extra information. Okay, and then I'm gonna click on add new tag. And there it is. And it's from the right source. Okay, so I'm gonna close this, and then I'm gonna choose it. Okay. So right now this input tag doesn't do anything. So again, we're just gonna search how the input tag jump is set up. So let's search for references. And in this case, one new reference shows up. So the ability set itself. So Control E to open it up. And it's right here. So the gameplay ability jump is hooked up to the jump input. So that's how basically when you press the jump input that's set up here, it's hooked up to this tag, which is hooked up to the ability. Okay, so this indicates also that we actually have to create a gameplay ability for our glide. So I'm just going to browse to it so that it's a nice spot to have the gameplay ability. Okay, and then this is a Lyra gameplay ability jump. But in our case, we're just gonna have a basic Lyra gameplay ability. Okay, I'll keep this one open because we'll fill this up very soon. So I'm just going to right click here, blueprint class, and then you can choose the Lyra gameplay ability. Okay, I'll call this one GA, and then I guess hero glide, because for now the AI won't be gliding anytime soon. Or if we do want them to glide, I guess we could just call it GA glide so that its name anyways is ready for being used anywhere. We're just going to add it to the ability set. So let's add an element to the granted gameplay abilities. Okay, and then glide. And the input tag is the one we just created. So glide. All right, so our inputs are all set up. And next we're going to make the ability. As an example, it's good to also open up the hero jump. Okay, I'm just going to maximize this. So in the class default for the jump, I noticed that it had this ability tag that it uses. And notice that all these ability type action are on every single ability. So I looked a little bit more into it and I found that there was a tag relationship shooter data, a general way of describing how tags relate to each other, which is really nice and it doesn't have to be on the abilities themselves. So in this case, it describes the relationship between the dead and dying state to the action. So it's nice because it essentially blocks any type of ability that has this tag or this parent tag from activating. And oh yeah, from activating, because it's blocked by the fact that your player is dead or dying. And another place I saw it is in the dead or death. In the hero death, it's funny that the hero has the ability to die, a little bit morbid. But what I noticed is that in the hero death, in its class defaults, it adds another functionality to actually cancel any ability with that tag. So whenever you die, it cancels all the abilities with this tag. So this will be very useful for our glide. So let's say we're shot down from the sky. We shouldn't be gliding. So we're going to add that to our gliding ability. So I'm just going to go navigate back to our glide. Okay. Our glide will also have the ability tag, ability type, and then action. And then we're just going to add glide to it. So glide, and this is good. Currently gliding. Okay, add new tag. And then I have to choose it and compile, save. So now our glide will be interrupted by dying and you won't be able to start gliding when you are dead or dying. Let's open up the full blueprint editor for the glide and let's just have a log. So print string, we'll say we are gliding. And then whenever we end the ability, we are not gliding, just to see if it's okay. So we are not gliding. And then for ability to work on hold, essentially it's already using the hold input action. And now we can actually call wait input release. So this will essentially just wait until the input that's bound to the ability is released. And then it will execute whatever's hooked up to on release. So this is the behavior that we want. So whenever your input is released, we will end the ability. Okay. And another thing that we want is that this ability should only be triggering whenever you are falling or you're in the sky. So what we can do about that is we can add the activation required tag. So let's require that you're currently falling. All right. And to test this better, it's going to be very useful to have a jump pad. So let's actually add a jump pad to this level. Okay, so it's not called a jump pad, it's called a launcher add. So there's the up and the push. So we're just going to use the push. Sorry. We're just going to use the up. All right. And I'll make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to just get thrown into the sky. Okay, I'm gonna save that. Okay, so now whenever I play, So it doesn't throw you very high. So we're going to change that. So click on the launcher up, and then in our up override, there's no details. I'm going to say 2000. That might be a bit high. And then let's play. Okay, nice. Okay, so we are gliding. I'm holding the space bar. And then when I let go, we are not gliding. The first problem we see is that when we land, we're still technically gliding. So we're going to add another wait for task. And in this case, it will just wait until the movement mode becomes walking again. Okay, so this one is a node wait for, or I think it's just called, yeah, wait movement mode change. And we're going to choose walking. And if you have swimming, you'll have to have one for that as well. Because when you're falling and you enter a water volume, it will switch to that mode. And then you might still technically be gliding. But in this example, I don't have any swimming, so this is sufficient. So whenever our movement mode changes on change, even if you're still holding the input, we're going to end the ability. Okay, so let's go here. Okay, I am holding the space bar, still holding the space bar, and it says we are not gliding. But momentarily, it still said we are gliding because we're pressing the input. And that's another problem. So we want the glide to only trigger after we jump. So we're going to add another block tag. And in this case, it will be jumping. But at the moment, there's no tag that says that is on when you're jumping. So let's go ahead and add that. In our GA hero jump, let's go ahead and add activation owned tag. So this one will be movement dot mode dot jumping. So it doesn't exist yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and add it. The other ones are added in code. The other movement mode ones. So this one will just be the default gameplay tags. And I'm going to add this one and select it. So I am jumping. And okay, so I can close this death. It's started to be a lot of tabs. So in our glide ability, let's go ahead and add that blocking tag. So activation block tag. So if you're currently in the jumping mode, then you can't activate. And then in the hero jump, let's just see. So you start jumping and you stop jumping whenever your state is done, and whenever you release the input. So this will save us on the keyboard. Unfortunately, it doesn't save us on the gamepad if we want to bind it to A. If anyone has any insights about that, please share in the comments. So, sweet. So now we have, let's see what happens. So I jump, and if I press spacebar again, now we are gliding. Okay, so now we are ready for actually adding the logic to glide. My first instinct for gliding was to add another movement mode and everything, but gliding is so similar to falling, and it's just basically a force that counteracts gravity. So I was thinking it might be overkill. And the falling movement mode already has this nice functionality whenever you hit walls or whenever you land to smoothly go into the next movement mode. And also Lyra has this nice animation thing where the feet are they get ready for landing, and it's very nice and smooth. So what I opted to do is essentially, I'm just going to stop this. So essentially, I will just cancel the gravity and have some root motion from the ability that replicates very nicely. That root motion will have a certain amount of time, and when that time is done, then we are done gliding. And another thing we'll need to do is bump up the air control so that the player can move around while in the air. Okay, so let's go ahead and do exactly that. Okay, so let's navigate to after our wait movement mode. And let's get our Lyra character from actor info. And let's get our character movement, because that is where we have our gravity scale and our air control. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to set our air control. Okay, so set our air control to the max, so 1. And I'm going to make a variable so that you can always tweak how much air control you want your players to have. So air control while gliding. Okay, and then I'll set this one to 1. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to essentially cancel the velocity z right away before we turn off the gravity, because or else we'll be flying up for a while. Yeah. So we're going to first get our velocity, because we don't want to actually cancel our x and y velocity. So I'm just going to split this structure. Okay, and then this will start to get pretty messy. I'm just going to add some reroute nodes, and then set velocity. Okay, and then this one too, I will split this structure. And then these two are hooked in, and velocity z is what we want. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is to set the gravity scale to 0. Okay, so let's actually see what this does. And, or actually before we do it, all of this, let's just copy all of this over so that we can reset our values whenever the ability is done. So I'll copy paste over here. Okay, compile save. And let's see. Oh, yeah, that's right. I have to, let's make an air control variable or duplicate this one. And then this one will be air control to, or initial air control. Okay. This we could set at the start of the ability, but I'm just going to set it to 0.4 because that's what it was. There you go. Okay, and then we don't actually need to set the velocity back again, but the gravity scale, we have to change it back to 1. So that's where maybe some gameplay effects would be useful, because the way your air control or gravity scale might be affected by other things, this might mess with that. And it's probably better to have some kind of stacking logic to see what wins, what should the gravity scale be at the end of any ability. Yeah, but let's try that. So technically your player should just be hovering forever. This kind of looks like the flying mode, but that whenever you let go, you're done gliding. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to apply a root motion. Okay, so that one we'll have at the end. So the node is called, so the next one is called apply root motion constant force. This is nice because it executes on the client and server, and it works pretty nicely in multiplayer. The only problem with multiplayer will be setting the velocity z to 0, so you'll get some jitter when they start gliding. Okay, and then our world direction is -1. Okay, and then I chose a pretty nice strength I like to 300. And then the duration of this constant force will be the glide duration, which is tweakable. So I'm just going to compile this. And then I'm going to set up my glide duration to be 5 seconds. That should be good. Okay, and then the rest are okay. Like, we don't want to enable gravity. We don't want any acceleration. And then a nice one to have is there's this strength over time curve float object. So instead of immediately starting to go downwards and glide, it's nice to have a nice ease in. So I'm going to go ahead and create a curve for that. Okay, so I'm just going to search where that is. And then it's expecting a curve float object reference. So I'm going to actually start organizing this ability in a folder. So I'm just going to right click, new folder, glide, and we'll put our glide in here. Let's move this here. And then I'm going to create a curve. So I think it's under miscellaneous, and then curve, and then it was asking for a curve float. So that's what I'm going to choose. And then I'm going to call this one CR for curve, and then glide ease in. All right. And then what I'm going to do is add a key, which is also middle mouse button. So I'm just going to add this. So at 0 seconds, we are at 0. And then 0.2, let's be at 100%. So 1. Whoop. Okay, and then I'll just right click this and do auto, so we have a nice curve. I think if I press F, yeah, if I press F, it will nicely frame these 2 points. So this is a nice ease in, and I'm going to use it and strength over time. So it's called CR glide ease in. Okay, great. So now we have that. And then on to finish, we're going to end the ability. Okay. So now when I play, I do the glide. We're not in the air for 5 minutes, that's for sure. Okay, so we start. Oh yeah, so we can't move X and Y. I'm going to stop this. And then, so the problem is that this wasn't on. So it's good that it's additive, or else it replaces all the movement you have on your player. And only this drives your motion. But we want the player to have air control. If you don't want the player to have air control, then that is perfect for you. But just make sure to turn that on. Okay, so now we play. All right, nice. So now I'm gliding. And you can see that after it ended the ability, it reactivated it. So we actually want to just make sure that the player only uses the glide ability once if they do it fully. So I'm going to stop this. What we could do would be have like a stamina attribute, or like an amount of air or a cooldown. But for this video, what I want to do is simply have just the glide be depleted whenever it's fully used. And then you can't activate it if it's depleted. And whenever you walk again, it will get rid of that depleted effect. Okay, so whenever the ability ends, we're going to add that it was depleted. So we're going to create a gameplay effect for this. And then apply that gameplay effect. So apply gameplay effect to owner. And we need to create that gameplay effect. Okay, so I'm going to create a new gameplay effect in our nice new folder. So right click, and then it's the gameplay, or it's unfortunately not in the gameplay section. It's in the blueprint class, and then we have to search, or oh no, there it is. Gameplay effect is right here. So GE glide depleted is going to be our name. And all that this is going to do, I don't know why it opens up in a full blueprint right away. I'm going to close this, reopen, and there you go, because it's a data only class. So what I noticed right away in 5.3 is that it's nice and tidy. It doesn't have everything that the GE used to have, but everything is part of components that you add to your gameplay effect. So it's very modular now. It did take me a while to find where everything was. Our GE depleted. I can close all of this. We don't need that. Okay. So our GE depleted will be infinite until you start walking. And then what we want this effect to do is essentially it just grants a tag to the ability owner or the effects owner. So that one was target tags gameplay effect component. So handles, oh, it was so fast. Okay, so that one, so it handles granting tags to the target. So it's nice. It has really good description for what all of these do. Okay, so this will add a tag, and then I still don't know what removed does, because this is, you're trying to grant the tags. But yeah, we need to put it in the added, and then navigate to gameplay effect. Okay, and then add a subtag glide depleted. So this, in this case, glide was depleted. Can't glide. Okay, so let's add this new tag, and then we need to choose it. Okay, so whenever this is on, this can happen. So we're gonna add another blocked tag for activation. So activation blocked tag. Let's add our depleted tag. Okay. And then the other one was an interesting thing, because I essentially just wanted, whenever you land on the ground or you're walking, then it cancels or it removes this whole gameplay effect. So that one was actually just called target tag requirements gameplay effect component. And so this is while the gameplay effect is active. So this will stop the gameplay effect to be applied. And then this one will basically turn it on or off, but it will still be on the player. It will still exist. So the one we actually wanted was the removal tag requirements. So this will, and it also prevents effect application. Um, so let's say you already landed, then you don't need to say that it's depleted. So this one, for some reason, it really confused me because I had the assumption. I'll just close these. So I had the assumption that it would be must not have tags. So I had the assumption that it would be okay, remove the effect when you have these tags. So let's say you don't have the tags, you remove this effect. But in this case, it was actually must have tags. So so it's under must have tags, and then it's the walking movement mode. So essentially, remove this effect when you have this tag on. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and play. Okay, so we are gliding. Oh, we haven't actually hooked up the gameplay effect. So let's go back to the GA glide and select this depleted gameplay effect. Okay, and then let's play. Okay, and whenever we glide, we're not gliding, and it doesn't auto allow us to glide again. The only detriment is that if you just use it in burst, you won't be able to glide again. But if this is the behavior you want, then that's okay. But in my case, I want people to be able to cheese it. So I want to make sure that this only applies whenever this finished nicely. So in my case, for multiplayer's sake, I just made sure to cancel the ability so we know that so that the server knows that the client tried to cancel this ability, or however the execution happens. We know, okay, this one was canceled, apply this gameplay effect. So if it was canceled, so let's say we depleted everything, then we apply the depleted effect. If not, we just go ahead and do the whole gravity and air control reset. Okay, so now when I play, I can do little spurts of glide. But really what would probably work better is a stamina attribute or air attribute. Yay. Okay, so let's now go ahead and test multiplayer just to see if everything is behaving as expected. So I'm going to choose net mode, listen server, and let's play with 3 people because it's always good to see from one client to the next what it looks like. So let's play a new editor Windows. It's a bit hard to see because it's so high up. So I'm just going to back up this client, and then this client 2, I'll make them jump. So I think we can see. Okay, so it's very, very laggy. Okay, so our ability might actually have to replicate. So the other ability that was using root motion was the dash, and let's see how they did it. So the hero dash, it is set to replicate. Okay, so that might be all that we are needing. Okay, so yeah, how an ability replicates state events to everyone on the network. So we want everyone to be able to see the truth of where the player is. or else it's a little bit hard to shoot at someone in the air that is just going all over the place. So yeah, let's see if that works. Okay, yeah, that's better. Okay, and then the biggest test, I guess, will be the server. Okay, so server. All right. Another thing to note is that you might also be emulating server lag. So I'm just going to go in my editor preferences, and I think it's in the play. Yeah, it's in the level editor play. So you can not enable network emulation. So this one was very average. Okay, so I'll see what that looks like without simulating lag. Okay, so this client. Aha. Yeah, that is pretty smooth from client to client. Okay, so the last bit of this video is we want to have a visual that shows how much air is left, and just so that you can see that the player is currently gliding. It could be anything. So in our case, it'll just be a sphere. So I'm gonna go ahead and just close this play session. And at first, I tried to make a gameplay queue, but I had some trouble removing it from the server of all things. So in our case, we're just going to create a actor on the server. So whenever you start in our GA glide, okay, so in our activate ability, after everything, let's go ahead and spawn an actor. So I'm going to use the ability task, spawn actor, and it's on the network authority. But I just want to make sure that only the server is calling this, because that actor itself will replicate. So has authority. And if you're making a single player game, you don't need to have it replicating, you don't need to have authority checks, and you're living probably the good life. So in our case, we're going to attach that actor. So attach actor to actor on successful spawn, and we're going to also we could keep a reference to the actor here. So okay, promote to variable. So the latent nodes don't know what to automatically execute whenever promoting to variable. So just make sure that it's on successful application. So this one, I will call it balloon actor. Okay. And this one will be just snap to target. Rotation rule, snap to target, sounds good. And since it's a sphere, it doesn't really matter the rotation. And then the scale, keep relative, is good. Okay, and then we actually need to create that actor. So I'm going to go back and let's create just a basic actor. So, I thought it would be here. Okay, so all classes, let's just choose an actor. Okay, and then this one I'll call B glide balloon. Okay, and then I'm going to add a sphere. And I'm not making it the root because I do want it to have offset. And when it attaches to the parent, it'll be around the chest of the mannequin. So I'm just going to add some offset. And I'll choose some basic color, a nice green. Okay. And I think the size might be a little big, but we'll see soon. And another thing we want to do is on begin play, we can set a timeline so that it shrinks over time. Okay. And let's go to timeline. And then let's just track a float because we're going to use the same relative scale everywhere. So scale of balloon. But in our case, we're just going to make a constant curve. I'm just going to delete that one. And let's select both, right click, and just linear. Okay, I'll save. And then the length will be 1 second. We'll match the rate with the length of the glide. Okay, so, and then on update, we set the relative scale of the sphere. Okay, and I just noticed that I'm doing the opposite. So it should start with 1 and it should end with 0.01. So let's just make sure it's not 0 because we might have trouble setting a scale of 0 to a primitive. Okay. Okay, so whenever this updates, it will set the new scale. So whenever it updates, okay. And then I'll name this one balloon shrinking. Okay, and then we can have a variable float for life of balloon. And then this is 5, or we could always also set it from the ability. Okay. And then we can set, so balloon shrinking. So you can get the value of this timeline and then set, I think it's time, oh, set play rate. Okay, so it might be the opposite. This might make it 5 times faster. And then play from start. Okay, so we have our balloon and it's shrinking. It might be shrinking too fast. Let's see. I'll close this. Let's go back to the gliding. So what we want to do is we want to spawn that balloon. Okay. And I think another thing we can do is we can expose this on spawn and make it instance editable. Unfortunately, it doesn't show up in the spawn actor like the other normal spawn actor does. So we'll just keep it at this. Okay, and then whenever the ability ends, we can make sure that if you have authority, you destroy this actor. Okay. And that should be it. Oh, and also just make sure that your balloon replicates. All right. Let's see what that looks like. So I'm gonna look up. And then this one. Yoo! So I don't see any balloons. Okay, so I guess I could always test locally and see where that balloon went. It might have been destroyed. Let's see. So it's a bit slow whenever I select the player. So the player, where is the player? Okay, so whenever you can't see enough details, it might be that your outliner is not showing you the right world. So you can select the gear icon and then choose world and then server. And then that's where all your items will be. So this is, I think, the one I want to see. Or I guess that one. Okay. So that's the shooter I want to see. I'm going to keep playing. Aha! So you can see that the balloon hasn't been attached correctly, and also the timeline is way faster. So this must be 0.0.0. And yeah, you can see it didn't show up attached to the shooter mannequin. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the glide, stop. And so what happened is that I didn't even choose the parent actor. So I'm gonna get the Lyra character from actor info, and then this is the parent that we want to attach to. Okay, and the other thing we want to do is that our glide balloon, the play rate is way too fast. So what we want to do is we want to divide our float. So to float, yeah, that's good. So 1 divided by life balloon, and then set that one up. And then we'll just make sure that no one sets this to 0. So value range. So the minimum would be, I guess, 0.1. Same with the slider. Okay. So I think, yeah, if you try 0, it'll change it to 0.1. So this is good for avoiding dividing by 0 errors. I'm going to switch it back to 5. Okay, and then now when I play, yay, there's a balloon. Is there for so fast. Okay, so it gets smaller. Poof. I can imagine having a little audio cue at the end. So let's test this up also in multiplayer. I'm just going to choose 3 people. And let's play in new editor windows. All right. And let's see. So this guy goes here. Nice. Shows up on client. I was not facing the right way, so I'm just going to face the sky. Okay. So yeah, we get a nice balloon. And it's a bit hard for me to do that at the same time, but I can probably shoot them, or I'm going to change it to so that the AI can shoot us, just to test that the death works. So I'm going to go back to edit, editor preferences, and then the Lyra developer settings, allow player bots to attack, gliding, shoot at me. Sweet. So yeah, the glide ability was cancelled and we died in the sky. Another thing I want to do, you probably noticed that the camera was clipping with the balloon. So I want to make sure to set that there's no collisions on the balloon. So sphere, let's go ahead and just add no collisions, and character cannot step on it, even though it might be fun. And then no overlap. Gravity doesn't matter. Okay, and yeah. Yay, now the camera doesn't stop, doesn't break. Nice. Okay, and then I just want to remove all my logs. Yeah, so you have some air control while you're gliding. And it should be useful for reaching other places. I'd say that right now, gliding in the sky makes you a prime target. but it's pretty fun to do. So yeah, thanks for watching and see you all in the next one.